Okay, this is another Torah teacher who's trying to use teachings to condemn other Torah teachers.
So your favorite Torah teacher comes to town, and you gather all your friends together, and he gives you a free talk, and everyone has a good time, you have some good laughs, and you buy some of his books and tapes, and maybe you even give him a small donation to help him on his way, and then he leaves. Have you just fulfilled your requirements in Scripture? Have you just kept the Torah, or have you just broken Scripture?
Okay, let's just pause that there. So, I'm listening to you. Okay, so you could be my favorite Torah teacher, and let's say I buy some of your books and tapes after this, which I'm sure you've got them on offer somewhere. So what would happen then if I did that?
As we're going to see, you actually just broke Scripture.
I broke Scripture?
So some might be saying, what are you talking?
So what you're saying is that if I listen to you and give you any credibility, then I'm breaking Scripture? Oh, okay.
Talking about? We had someone over. How is that breaking Scripture? Well, what we're going to see is that the Hebrew Roots movement is not set up according to Scripture. There's structural problems in the Hebrew Roots movement, and in fact, the Hebrew Roots movement looks nothing like what Scripture says we are to do.
Okay, well, very interesting. Let's just see what else he actually teaches on.
My name is Norman Willis. I'm with NazareneIsrael.org. And if you want to keep the calendar our Creator Yahweh commands us to keep in Scripture, then this...
Well, if I want to keep the calendar that Yahweh has for us, then I would go to Yeshurun International, and basically I would definitely not listen to this guy, even though obviously he might have some truth in his teachings, but let's just examine some of more of his teachings.
Wait until the barley comes ripe.
By the way,
then you go up to Jerusalem
if you listen to this guy for more like than 2 minutes,
6 months out of sync,
you definitely go into some kind of trance state. His voice is just...
By the sighting of the first crescent sliver of barley from the land of Israel.
Total trance, man, I'm telling you.
Barley reports from Israel. We offer a free service in our newsletter.
I don't know if he's a Kabbalist, but he's just got one of these voices that he just puts you into a trance within a couple of minutes.
So one more thing we need to discuss here.
Our favourite theory
is what's called Lunar Sabbath theory.
Yeah, that's the true calendar of Yahweh.
The idea that instead of basing the Sabbath off of the calendar.
Okay, let's just go over the facts that Rome didn't have a 30-day month until Constantine, until he took the idea from the actual Hebrew calendar. Actual lunar months have about 30 days, okay? Basically, yes, that has varied within the past thousands of years, but if you go back to the Old Testament, you'll find that on the 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd and 29th, then you'll find that Israel actually kept these days holy and actually had feasts unto the Lord. You'll see a feast unto the Lord or a Sabbath actually mentioned in the Old Testament on these lunar dates. Okay, so that's the original way of counting months, was by the moon. Okay. And usually sometimes they'd have to add another month to actually make up the solar year, because there's obviously a difference in lunar years and solar years. So that's why they have to have some kind of a leap year every about 3 years or so. Okay, and that, by the way, is just Hebraic facts. That's the same facts as they actually follow in today's calendar in Messianic or Rabbinical Judaism. Okay, it's just that well, I mean, if you listen to this guy, then he makes it sound as if it's impossible to keep the lunar calendar, but it's actually the very basis of the actual Hebrew calendar. Okay, because every Hebrew moon has a name. Okay, even in the Babylonian calendar, which the Jews use today, they have names for months. Okay, Nisan and all that. These are the names of moons. So, see, he doesn't explain this to the people that he's teaching here. He just says that he just makes out as if like the lunar phases are crazy, like a crazy man's theory. But in fact, if you actually count the days from the new moon, there is always a 7-day cycle in between, you know, the first crescent, the full moon, and the last quarter, and then it goes back to the new moon again. There's a 7-day cycle in between all of those. Okay, that's just fact, but he doesn't tell people that. Okay, so let's see what else he tries to teach.
Moon is not digital. If you actually try to walk out the lunar Sabbath theory, it's very...
Okay, so he's saying that the moon isn't digital. Well, we never actually assumed that it was. I'm not quite sure where you got that idea from. I know that your calendar is now digital because, you know, we got all this technology that we use today. You know, for calendars, or basically where this man gets his calendar from is passed down from Pope Gregory. Okay, this is where he gets his calendar from, and he certainly tries to start the Hebrew year with Aviv Barley, as far as I understand, which is Torah based, but the days that he actually keeps are pagan. Okay, he doesn't explain that to people properly, obviously. So again, saying the moon is not digital has got to be one of the lamest arguments against lunar Sabbath keeping that I've probably ever heard.
We look at the phases of the moon. Again, the moon is not digital. It's very analog. So it's hard to tell from one day to the next what phase the moon is really in.
Really? It's hard to tell which phase the moon is in? Well, all you need to do is really look up at the sky. Is that hard? I don't think so. Maybe this man has trouble looking up.
Simple 50%, 100% like people think.
But it is.
Remembering the moon is
but you see, hold on a second.
2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a simple 100%, 50%. Every single month you'll get that. So that's a lie. Okay.
It's up to 4 days, and it's dark for 2 or 3 days.
Okay, well, that's not completely consistent, and that's not true. In fact, what is true is that there are 7 dark moons in a Shana in a year. In other words, there are 7 moons, okay, that it will take more than 24 hours to actually start the month. Some months actually end and then start the next day, okay. So basically you'll have the Sabbath on the 29th, and then the next day you'll have the new moon. That actually happens 5 times in a Shana, okay. And the rest of the 7 times, or sometimes slightly more than that if it's a leap year, then you will actually have an extra day to start your new moon. And that is Torah, by the way. It's an observable calendar, and it was even done during Yeshua's time, that if 2 witnesses couldn't actually see the new moon, they actually had to wait until the next day. Like if there was cloud cover, they would have to wait until the next day till they actually observed the new moon. And by the way, that's what the rabbinics do as well. So the guy's a hypocrite. He's attacking lunar Sabbath keepers with the laws that they themselves keep as well. Okay, so it's kind of crazy, his argument, to be honest. It's not valid. Okay, so he's just attacking now just weak reasoning in the lunar Sabbath theory, which is really not worth listening to because it will confuse people. Now, let's just reiterate that Yeshua actually died 3 days before the first fruits, which was on the 16th of Aviv, which you actually see here, the 16th day. Okay, oh, I just missed it. Thanks a lot, man. But let me just pause it. So he's obviously like advertising his videos now, trying to make money off of people. So we'll just stop it there for a second. See all this stuff? He's saying that the moon isn't digital, and yet he's coming up with digital figures. Okay, now Abba, Yahweh, our Father, actually created the moon, the phases of the moon, when the sun comes up, when the sun goes down, okay? All the portals of the sun, the portals of the moon, which have been expounded upon in the book of Enoch. So isn't it interesting that we just put the video back and his eyes are wide shut towards that part of the Torah? So all these Torah teachers, they're so great about teaching the Torah as far as they understand it, but they just haven't reckoned out that other people have got a better understanding than them, and really their eyes have got to be opened into this part of the Torah, which they actually try to keep. You see, this is the hypocritical part of it. And the rabbinical or the Jewish calendar, they actually use the moon to actually discern the Jewish feast days, but of course they'll never tell you that. They'll never go into that. So they're a bunch of hypocrites, unfortunately, and again, probably just making merchandise out of people, trying to make lunar Sabbath people look crazy when they in fact are the ones that are denying the very Torah or the law that Yahweh put into effect on the 4th day of creation. Okay, so they're actually denying that law. So there we are, another hypocrite, another Torah teacher not worth listening to, not really worth his salt. And well, any other questions about the lunar Sabbath, just let me know and we can clear them up within probably a sentence or two. Thanks for listening.